have a very special guest with us, Antimo Di Donato. He's going to be talking to everyone about personal branding. Very exciting. I'll give you a backstory on Antimo. He has 15 years experience, of which 8 of them were spent as a team leader, delivering sustainable business impact, building digital strategies, products, and propositions through data and analytics and agile capabilities, leading innovation and transformation end to end, from vision setting to implementation, and transforming and running services with the adoption of lean and operational excellence methodologies. Let's welcome Antimo. Floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Paloma, for the nice introduction. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. I'm really excited and happy to be here with you today. Thanks for inviting me. Today, we're going to talk about personal branding. And I hope, even if we're all remote, that this is going to be an interactive session. We're going to have exercises, we're going to have questions and interactions. So I hope that you will participate as you would be participating in person. So feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have questions. Otherwise, we will obviously have exercises and then questions and answers afterwards. And let me start then with the presentation. Let's get directly into it. I will share my screen so that I can share then the presentation. Okay, now you should be able to see my screen. It should be coming up any second. Okay, personal branding and what I call more in general being the CEO of me. And we will have a look at what does that means. But let me start with the agenda so that you know what we're going to do together. The first point is, why at all do I need to have a brand? The second is, what is a personal brand? And the third, and what I think is even more important, is the more active and interactive part of this session, which is to work together on structuring the branding, really starting to develop your own personal brand if you have it already, to improve it, and then to learn together what is the best way to communicate it. Let me start with a question. What is, in your opinion, or if you have read it somewhere, but please don't Google it now, otherwise that's cheating. So what is the most valuable brand in the world? Any guess?
Antimo, I'm not sure if you can see the chat on the Google Meet, but you have some answers there.
Thanks. So Apple, Amazon. We have a winner. Zainabo, thank you. You won. It's Apple. And the brand by itself is worth the even unthinkable amount of $200 billion. Apple is the most valuable also company in the world. There's a market cap of about 2 trillion. So 10% of the 2 trillion and an amazing $200 billion is just what you see here on the screen. Is that little logo and a caption, think different, right? How is it possible that just a little picture of an apple and a caption is worth so much? How did Apple build this over time? And why is it relevant for us, right? So let's start with a bit of a description of the Apple brand. People love the brand and buy Apple because it's Apple. That's why it's so important and so valuable, the brand of Apple, because people would probably not buy the same product, or many people would choose something else if it was an Apple. And this is because we trust that when we buy Apple, we are going to get something, to get a general feel of the product, to be part of an inclusive but still powerful experience, a group, and then obviously you have all the characteristics of the Apple brand, right? Now, and what we will try and do now will be actually to build our own brand. So each of us to start building the personal brand. And this is important because when you go on the market and you consider yourself as a company, you will need a brand. People will have to recognize what you stand for, have to immediately associate you with something. You not need a logo, but you probably need a caption, what we will see later. So a catching phrase that will hopefully stick in people's minds, and then out of that, really structuring the message and the communication. Now, as I said, this is just a very small section of what I usually do as part of the Company of Me workshop series. And we are in the second step. I use the 5 A's of transformations that is not only company transformation, but also personal transformation. And in this case, is personal transformation intended as you considering yourself as the CEO of your company. So after defining your mission, after defining the why, so the session that you had before this session, how do you assess your capabilities and against your short-term career options? And then out of those capabilities, distill your brand. This is what we're going to focus today, and just in short, but hopefully this will give you a flavor and some tools that you can use then to work on your own to keep working and developing your brand and then communicating it effectively. A few words about me. Paloma already mentioned it. I have 15 years experience of coaching and consulting. I was as you an MBA, in this case it was INSEAD, or before. I know that some of you also are a bit, not MBA, but pre-MBA, but that doesn't matter. You just need to recalibrate a bit the message and also recalibrate a bit the examples that you use. But we'll go there in a second. I had the lack of receiving offers from top consultancy firms. That was my dream job at the time. And there are ways to get there. Obviously, you need to prepare, but you also need to know what you want. And whatever your dream job is absolutely essential to do really all the steps that are needed to position yourself as best on the market. I also founded my company. This is the caption, empowering sustainable growth. This is just an example of caption. This is the logo. It's worth much less than the 200 billion of Apple. I recognize that. But it's also a way to see this. Is just an example of how a person can start marketing himself as a company, right? You don't need a logo to market yourself, but you definitely need a caption, and you definitely need to explain in a clear way what you stand for. What are your business lines? What is your company me going to do that is unique and is different from all the others that are applying for the same job, for example? And today we are going to focus on the capabilities, the part of that says, what am I capable to do? Right? Obviously, your dream job will be in the intersection of what you love and what you're going to be paid. But today, just that you know, this is really the part of the assessment, your own personal assessment of the capabilities, and then distilling it into a powerful communication. Now, let's take my example, what Paloma introduced to you, right? The caption is delivering sustainable business impact. I have 3 business lines when I interview. I innovate and transform a business, I run the operations, and I develop digital products, right? This is what I stand for. And this is powerful because it's hopefully easy to remember and to communicate. And the way I did it, I used the pyramid principle. You may be familiar to it. If not, it's relatively simple. Whatever communication you have to develop, it needs to have an overall message, a tagline. For the brand is a tagline. And then it needs to have typically 3 key lines. what are the governing thoughts of your brand? What are the three things that really are unique for you and really are your strengths and your capabilities? And then what you need to have below that is supporting points, proof points that justify why you claim that you have those capabilities. And these would be proof points from the CV, so they need to be visible somehow in the CV, and also need to be rehearsed so that they are ready to be explained in a powerful way during the experience interviews. But we'll get there in a second. Now, how does my brand look like in the pyramid? You see the tagline at the top, delivering sustainable business impact. There are three pillars: innovation and transformation, service and operations management, and digital and product development. How do I develop these? Well, there's two ways. You can either work top down to say, hey, what do I stand for? I stand for delivering impact. How do I deliver impact? Okay, I transform, I run, and I develop products. And when did I do that? What does prove that I can do that? And these are the examples of the projects. I was in Zurich Insurance and I developed the group digital strategy. I develop nearshoring operations and change activities. I develop lean programs. That what proves that I can do innovation and transformation. Now, some of you are undergrad, so they may have less. Yeah, Zinabu, thanks for the question. I was about to answer exactly that because I was asked already that question before. What do you do if you don't have that much work experience? And this is a valid question. And what undergrads usually do, and what I would advise you to do, is to do it in two ways. First, you develop your brand and you think what you stand for. And then you identify what are the gaps here. Maybe I have some gaps on digital product development. I would like to be in that space, but I have no experience. So then you work towards that goal by maybe identifying an internship you would like to do, or a non-profit work that you did in the past, but you want to emphasize because actually there was an experience related to launching a digital proposition or whatever that is. So you need to first identify the gaps, and then use either experiences that you had and position it in a certain way, or use or start doing that, right? I remember there was a person that applied to work in my team, and we hired him. And one of the ways in which he was showing the commitment is that he shared the fact that he did a certification on digital. He had little experience before on digital, but then he said, you know what, I'm doing this certification. That proves motivation. The other important thing is, do not underestimate the importance of examples in which you proved leadership in your personal life. So it can be non-profit, but it can also be activities that you personally do, even things that happen in your family or circle of friends. There are sometimes some example that you could share in the experience interview in which there wasn't work related, but still you proved that you made something happen that would have not happened without you, or you solved a difficult problem, or you solved a conflict, etc. So as I said, you can work either bottom up or top down. Top down we discussed. Bottom up is actually you collect all your experiences from your CV, other things that are not on your CV, and then you start grouping them and seeing the pattern. Okay, what is the pattern? I did this, I did that, and did that. Actually, this all proves that I can do X, Y, and Z. Does that answer your question, Zainabu? Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for asking that. Okay, now, where do you get all these proof points? Three places. One is the curriculum. So look at your own CV and check what you excel, what are your main career achievements. successes. They may not be necessarily at work, as I said. It can also be your personal life. It can be non-profit or volunteering experience. And then when you performed at your best, then you need a star's description. We will talk more about it, but this is a way in which you communicate your successes. And third, feedback. When did people recognize you in the past? When did you receive good appreciation, and about what? And there you recognize, okay, people keep repeating me that I'm really good and keeping deadlines, and I'm keeping good at being reliable, right? So this is a characteristic of you that you should emphasize, right? Now, let's do an exercise now. Enough of me talking. So you have 7 minutes to structure your own brand. I know this is a little time, but it's on purpose. It's just for you to get started and maybe even get stuck, because that's important for you then to ask some questions that you may have in doing the exercise, and then taking this embryo of your brand and then take it forward after we finish the session. So you have 7 minutes starting from now, in which you need pen and paper, and just write down how would the pyramid of your brand look like. And I will keep for these 7 minutes my example on the screen. Now is 1550, 1557. We regroup and we discuss. Use this as a blueprint if you want, and off you go. Hello. If people just joined, we're doing an exercise on building the personal brand. This is an example from myself, and we're doing the pyramid of each of us personal brands. So bear with us another couple of minutes and then we'll continue. Two more minutes. Okay, time is up. Let's then regroup. I hope it was helpful and interesting for you. And most importantly, is just to give it a try. Definitely, you will need more than 7 minutes to build your own brand. But it would be interesting that now we share how was your experience? How was it to build the structure of your personal brand? What are the main challenges you faced? You can either just unmute yourself and ask the question or write in the chat as you prefer.
I have a question. Yeah, Mohammed, if you want to go first, I don't mind.
No, I don't mind. You can go first.
Okay, thank you. Uh, I was just building the pyramid of mines. I found the three pillars, but I couldn't get the topmost one. It's something similar, but the one which represent the three pillars, I was not getting any word for.
The tagline.
Yeah.
Well, it's already a good start that you have identified the three pillars. Not many people do that at the first try. So first, well done. And second, it takes time to come. So now that you identified the three pillars, let's try and sync it. Try and make it sync in you. Try and identify the examples. You're probably a person that maybe works better bottom up. So you identify the examples and then the tagline will come. And if it doesn't come, give it a try and then iterate it. You know, I changed my tagline maybe 20 times. So, and I change maybe a word or two every 2 or 3 months. So it's also something that is alive somehow. So don't put too much pressure on finding the perfect one from the first time. Give it a try and then iterate it.
Yeah, but it should be something promising, like when we are applying job. So I'm
Yes.
not getting the words which sounds promising. Like yours one seems similar to what I am thinking.
Uh-huh. Start from something similar, and then you will again make it sink a little bit, and then reflect on it. Maybe one thing that you could do also, share it with your peers, share the whole pyramid with your peers, and ask them for feedback. They may say, actually, from these three things, I see more the word, I don't know, strategizing instead of delivering, right? Because you're more
Shall I
strategic.
share it with you now? And then we can see if it's working.
If we let's do like this. Let's park it. If we have time at the end, let's come back to that. How about that?
Okay. No worries.
Fantastic.
Mohammed, you wanna go next?
Yeah, I can go. I just have a question for you. For let's say, of course, every brand is different than other brands, so it doesn't necessarily have to consist of. It can maybe you can have like one pillar or two pillars max. Like obviously, like I was thinking of a brand that consists of, you could say, mostly labor. So I think there's going to be service and operation management, but other than that, I don't think, like, is it okay? Is it normal, or does it have to consist of all those stuff you mentioned before?
So, Mohammed, this is just my example. Your three pillars could look completely different. They could
Okay,
look
okay,
completely different. It's just an
okay.
example to make it real to you, right?
Yeah,
Your pillars could be strategy, could be, I don't know, event management. It could be really anything. It's really your strengths, right? So these are not to be taken for granted, or like you need to develop out of those. Not at all.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Any other thoughts or question? How was it for you? Difficult, easy? I see Zainabu writing the main challenge was creating a balance between what I've already done and what I want to do for the future. A great point, Zainabu. As also partially mentioned before, you might realize that you have some gaps. You would like to develop a pillar, but you're not quite there. And it happens a lot. So if that's the case, don't drop the pillar. Absolutely not. This is your brand out there in the market. It should also be a reflection of where you want to go. And if you find that one of the pillars is weak, it's a great achievement. It's an achievement because you realize it, and for the first time, it's really explicit in front of you. And now, what you need to do is to develop an action plan to close that gap. So if you really want to develop, let's say, in event management, just to make an example, and you actually only organized the Boy Scout group of your district, right? This is definitely a good example, but you need to do more. So you realize that, and now you need to find creative ways to close that gap. Maybe you want to volunteer yourself to organize more events. You want to do an internship in an event management company, or you name it, right? You need to find some creative ways to really close that gap and position yourself as someone that has the capabilities and the experience to do event management. Does that answer your question? Fantastic. Thank you, Zainabu. Great point. Anything else, either on the phone or on the chat? Okay, then let's move to the next part. And now you have built a pyramid, right? There will be some gaps, there were some question marks, maybe the tagline is not clear, maybe you need to think further about the third pillar, but you have to clear. That's okay, that's totally normal. It takes months to develop your brand. And personally, as I said, I develop this at least once a month. if you look at on my LinkedIn now, you will see that this is different from what you're seeing now, because I keep iterating it. There's no perfect brand, and you keep changing it and maybe adapting it. And when you show it on your marketing, assets, you definitely obvious places to show it are your CV. You should put it on the top, and LinkedIn. And then maybe you want to have a generic version that you use for LinkedIn, so whoever searches for you as the more generic brand. And then depending on the target companies that you have, you may want to adapt your CV. Obviously, you adapt your CV, but you also adapt slightly the brand. Maybe you emphasize one of the pillars more, you put it first, or you slightly change the wording of one of the pillars because that adapts better to the experience that is required for that job. Whatever that is, again, this is really a dynamic and alive instrument that you need to use, keep iterating, keep adapting, whatever the situation is. But definitely these two places are essential. You need to have a brand on LinkedIn, you need to have a brand on your CV. Recruiters have no patience. You know better than I do, they take maybe 30, 60 seconds to review your CV. If what you want to get across is not at the very top, they're not going to see it. They're just not going to see it. Okay? Now, let them move to the next part, which is the other way in which you communicate your brand is the experience interview. Whatever type of job you're applying for, there's many different ways in which you'll be assessed. Some will be more technical, some will be tests, some will be even case studies for consulting or investment banking. But there is one thing that I found almost every interview has, which is the experience interview. Tell me about a time in which there's many possibilities. You led a team through a difficult challenge, you were influencing others and you didn't have the formal authority, you were overcoming challenges, you were resolving conflict with someone or between different people in the team. These are classical examples. And now what is really powerful is that you use examples that tag back to your personal brand. So if I'm asked an example in which I was overcoming a challenge, I don't just take an example. I use this opportunity to show people that I overcame a challenge in developing a digital product. And that reinforces the message that that pillar is strong for me. I don't not always show my leadership capabilities, but I also show the capabilities in terms of experience in the digital space. Now, this is a question that you almost certainly are going to receive one way or the other. So you need to prepare something that is coherent with your brand and is rehearsed. And the best way to do that is to use the STAR method. It's very simple. Probably you have heard of it already. You describe the situation. I was involved in developing the new performance management system for Zurich Insurance. My task was to develop a way to track the progress against the strategy. The action I took, I developed the system in 3 dimensions. I developed the tools, I developed a new product, I developed a new governance, and I developed the governance and the strategy around it. The result is that we had a new dashboard used by more than 200 people in 7 different regions across the globe, and we had specific actions to improve the performance. Now, this is a very quick way to say the STAR, but you get the gist, right? It should take you no more than 3 to 5 minutes to tell the whole story, and you should go across these things. It's very important because it shows that you're structured, it shows that you are comprehensive, and it hits on the main points that the interviewer wants to hear. Now, let's do another exercise then. Now, you have your pyramid, you have some proof points, some bullets that you put at the bottom to prove some of your pillars. Now take one of those bullets, one experience. I shared the performance management dashboard for Zurich. You may share the time in which you organized the tour for your Boy Scout group, or the time in which you volunteered at and you developed a new program in Python, whatever that is, right? Take 7 minutes to develop that, to write down the story in the STAR method. And this will be one of the reusable stories that you always will have available for you when you have to explain your brand and when you receive one of the experience questions. Is that clear? Then now is 16:10, so at 4:17, we're going to regroup. Off you go. 2 more minutes. Okay, time is up. Let's get back together now. Questions. How was for you? Any challenge? Any challenge you foresee? Any other question? Either unmute yourself or in the chat, as you prefer.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question. Which example would be better? A non-profit work showing that I have interest besides job, or on-job example?
I think usually it's good to have a mix of both. If you have to choose.
So, non-profit project I did in collaboration with my employee is a better option.
Yes, I mean, in general, if you can choose, it needs to be something that is related to your brand. And if you have on your brand, the best examples are examples that you did in your job, or in a part-time job, or in a volunteering work if you haven't worked yet, or in an internship, right? That I would say prefer the professional experiences. And then if you lack too many of them, then go on the personal side. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Zainabu, for sharing. So it's true, when you do this exercise, you may realize things that you haven't realized before. As you mentioned before, in doing the structure, you may realize you have some gaps. In doing the exercise, you realize that actually you could share and show and demonstrate some skills and learnings that you previously were not aware of. So a good point. It's a good exercise to do in general, and you definitely need to rehearse in front of a mirror or in front of a peer of yours that can give you feedback. Try and use your peers to bounce back the pyramid you're developing, to bounce back your star experiences. Rehearsal is essential, absolutely essential. Anything else? I take it as a no. Time is running, so let's move on to a commitment. Now, I always like to leave you with a to-do, not because I'm I want necessarily to give you word, but I think it's important that you get out of this session with something concrete, something that you reflecting on. Okay, now I learned about the brand, I learned about the pyramid principle, I learned about the experience interview and the STAR method. What concretely do I want to do next? Choose one action, write it down in a smart way, so specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound, and then share it, this commitment today, with a commitment buddy. It usually works best if you have a buddy with which you work and to which you commit, because that makes your commitment much more likely to be held. So take a few seconds, think, what do you want concretely to do out of this session? I hope you wrote it. Make sure that you write it in a smart way, so it's time bound, very important, it's relevant to your brand. And if possible, right after the session, write an email to your commitment buddy or a WhatsApp and tell them what you want to do by when, and ask them to help you be accountable for that. Anyone wants to share an action that they commit to do? That's even more powerful if you share it now in the room, because now you have 20 people that can keep you accountable. Again, either via the chat or just unmute yourself.
Does rewriting the CV counts as an action? Because I see how terrible it is right now, so I definitely need to work on that.
Yes, rewriting is very important, and make it relevant to the branding. So specifically in light of the brand that you're developing. Thank you, Zainabu. You identified 3 gaps and ways to fill them by December 2021. Fantastic. Also very good action. Thank you for sharing. It's definitely something very important to be aware of those gaps, because before you weren't. And maybe you identify a direction you want to take, and the time is also relevant. So it's good that you do that in 2021. Fantastic. Anyone else?
What about future proofing? For example, on like more technical aspects.
Tell me more.
For example, information systems, backlogs, redundancy of your information, like having spare hard drives for your most valuable.
Sorry, the line was breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure I understood it.
Oh, so yeah, basically future proofing, because it's
so meaning making sure that you don't lose the work that you're doing or you're developing.
Yeah, but also updating systems whenever anything new comes out, if that helps you like further improve like business, not just revenue, but just like efficiency in the long term.
So I'm not sure I completely understood, because the line was breaking up, at least on my end. And so definitely is an important action to make sure that you update the efficiency of your systems regularly. And I mean, didn't exactly understand how that relates to your brand. If this is something that you want to do because it's one of the pillars of your brand. For example, efficiency is a pillar of your brand, and you want to do that as part of your branding. That's a fantastic way to develop that, and then make sure that what you do is also reflected in the proof points of your experience. Yeah, does that answer the question?
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other commitment that you want to share? Okay, well, thanks a lot for sharing your commitments. Thanks a lot also for sharing the questions and doubts and reflecting back together. I think that made the session much more interesting and interactive, at least for me. And I definitely learned a lot as well from your questions and from your comments. Now, if you want in the future, feel free to reach out. Feel free to look at the resources that are online on my website. Definitely work on your brand. This is going to be, whatever you do, time really well spent, and also time that will make your planning of the future more effective. As you say, if you develop a brand and you identify some gaps, you can develop some actions. You can realize that actually what you want to do is not necessarily coherent with what you have done in the past, so you can correct course. And if you do it at the proper time, then you definitely have, again, time to adjust. This is just the beginning. I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope it was valuable for you. I hope you have some good homework to continue and developing your brand. From my side, thank you again for having me. And just last note, there is no try, do or do not. This is my favorite quote from Yoda. So I leave you with this word and with a big thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.